Well, what's going on there, everybody? Welcome back to the farm. So like most of you across the country, it has just been an insanely wet spring here in Southwest Ohio. Like everybody else, I feel like I am way behind with trying to get my garden put in the ground. So I guess the little bit of saving grace in all of that is that I know that lots of other people are in the same situation as me. So I can't be too upset about it, even though I feel like I'm kind of behind the 8 ball, but it seems like that kind of happens every year. Feels like things just aren't quite going as they should. But anyways, so with all of this extra time that I've had, it's let me put a little bit more thought into how it is that I'm gonna work the garden this year. One of the symptoms of it being so wet is I wasn't ever able to get my tiller out here. Between it being so wet and me having some mechanical issues with my tiller, I wasn't able to ever get it out here and get the garden turned over. So I started looking into ways of doing a no-till garden. And what I have come up with, well, what other people have come up with, what I am gonna implement is I am gonna use tarps. And I am gonna try to tarp the entire garden so I have zero weed issues. And the only place that weeds will be able to come up, and even then, I don't think that it will, because I'm still going to mulch also, will be right at the hole. I'm going to burn a hole through the tarp, and that's where I'm going to plant. And I am going to amend the soil with compost right at the plant. I'm not going to try to compost everything and fertilize everything. Everything that I do is going to be right at the plant instead of trying to take care of the entire garden bed. So no till, no fertilizer everywhere, everything right at the plant. Now what we have here is an old pool cover. A couple of years ago, Dad did a big demo job where they filled in a pool at an apartment complex, and we brought home this old pool cover and some PVC and some pump motors and some other stuff. We are notorious for not throwing stuff away, but we hung on to this old pool cover, and what this is going to be able to do is this is the same material as the real heavy duty weed barrier, like yard cloth kind of stuff. It's actually even heavier duty. So this will let water permeate through it, but it also will choke back the weeds. So to start out, what I did is I measured off of the box here the same distance all the way down, and I used these heavy duty galvanized landscape staples to pin it to the ground all the way down the length down here. And like I said, I used, I think it was 40 inches from the box to the edge of the tarp to give myself a good crisp line. And now what I'll do is I'll stretch it across, and I'll go ahead and drive the staples in around the whole thing to get it good and affixed to the ground. Because unfortunately, it's looking like rain again. So who knows how far I'll even get with this today. So as you can see, this really covers a great big portion of the garden. Haven't spent any money yet except on landscape staples. So the other part of the garden, this is going to get tarped as well, but this is going to have to be some store-bought stuff. So I'll show you that here in a minute, but first I'm going to go ahead and get this all stapled down. There's the rain. All right, well, I went ahead and pushed through the rain, so I got a couple of things done while the camera was put away out of the water. So I will get you guys caught up to with where I am at now. So you can see the little pink flags, 1, 2, 3, 4 on either side. Got them down there as well. Those are going to be my long rows back and forth that way. So what I have here on this first long row is I've got my long tape measure wheel. I got it stretched across here to give myself a good straight line. And then I laid my hog panels out just to be able to see it, to kind of get a better idea visually what was going to look the best for the spacing. So I've got them evenly spaced. I decided I'm coming in 2 foot off the edge here, so I'm doing the same down there. Now what I will come through and do is I will mark here on the tarp with some paint I'm gonna come in one, I'm gonna mark here, I'm gonna mark dead center, and then I'm gonna do the same down here. I'll come in one and mark, and then I will use a torch and I'm gonna burn a hole in, and then those 3 holes are where my stake's gonna go on this panel. Now we're gonna burn holes in this because if we cut it, it's gonna fray. So hopefully, I imagine it's gonna work, but by burning the holes in it, that's what they suggested to do with the garden cloth, and I'm pretty sure this is the same exact material. Water will come right through it and everything. So by burning it, it will go ahead and seal up those ends and it won't fray. All right, so we'll go ahead and mark. And 10 foot should be center. And the other end. Then now I'm going to use this little guide that we made using some hole saws. Different size holes for going to be different size plants. Going to go ahead and use this biggest sized hole for the post. Taking a blowtorch and just that easy. Perfect hole. Now that where are they? There we go. Now that my holes are in place, I will go ahead and take the old post driver and get these T-posts banged in the ground. Okay, now that I have my first 6 posts in, which are going to be my first 2 panels for tomatoes, I am going to mimic the same thing. I've got my spots marked going down here for this second row of panels, so I will catch up with you guys after I get all that done. Well, this is as far as I'm going to get today. I'm pretty well and truly cooked. Sun baking back up off of the tarp out here. It's pretty stinking warm. But got the posts in for all of the tomato panels. So it'll be, if I remember correctly, I got my black cherry tomatoes will be here, my atomic grapes will be down there, my pastes, Amish pastes will be back here, and then down there on the front will be my Tappy's Heritage, which is a beautiful little slicer that I really enjoy. So hopefully we'll pick this back up tomorrow, but weather dependent, it may be a couple of days, so we'll see you when we see you. Well, it's been a few days since we were back out here. We did get the panels hung, but the point of this video, I didn't so much want to talk about getting the panels hung. That's kind of just self-explanatory. We just wire tied them to the posts. We did get a couple more pieces of the tarp put down. I will put something in here right after this. I'll show you guys the brand that we used. It's something that we picked up from Menards, so I'll show you the tag from the roll here in just a second. But now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our holes burnt for these are first couple panels over here are going to be for tomatoes, so we're going to get our spacing figured out for how the tomatoes are going to go in. We're going to get those holes burnt, and by this afternoon I will be getting some plants in the ground. So this is the weed barrier that we're using, besides the big pool cover, obviously. So it's a woven weed control fabric, used for the best weed control on gardens, landscapes, and hardscapes. Extra heavy duty contractor grade material, rotten mildew resistant, water permeable, extra long UV life. So like I said, this will let water through it. We got it in the 6 foot, there was a 6 foot and a 3 foot. I think there was also a 4 foot, but we didn't get any of the 4 foot. Dad's down there sticking some staples through it. And like we talked about, and like I showed, we're burning it because it's this woven material. I think, if you cut, X's in it like you kind of do with a traditional yard cloth, I think that it might unravel. So that's why we're burning it. So you see on the holes over here, it kind of just seals up those ends and hopefully won't come unraveled. So the other thing we're doing, instead of cutting our edges, we're also burning our edges. So I'm just going to use the edge of this box right here to give myself a straight edge. Just that easy. So I now basically have the weed barrier put in all the way around. I got a few tomato plants put in this afternoon. Got the whole area covered everywhere except over here. I need to do a little bit of tilling and moving some earth around over there, get it leveled out. We're gonna be putting a little roof up over there, so I've got a little covered area out here. That's gonna be a different project for a different day though. So but everything else is pretty much covered. There are some edges along some of the boxes and stuff that maybe I'll be mulching or something eventually. I'm sure that the weeds will start growing up through there, but I couldn't see myself wasting another entire stretch to get those little gaps filled up. So I'm gonna kind of have to game plan that a little bit better next year maybe. So this is my attempt at weed-free gardening. I saw this on, who was it? Living Traditions Homestead. They've got a really good YouTube channel with tons of great information on it, but they do this also. And I believe they're in Missouri, maybe somewhere in the Ozarks, somewhere out in the middle of the country. And I guess the weed pressure is just insane for them. So this is what they do, and they are really, really happy with it. So I decided I was gonna give it a try, because if you don't have a plan, you're gonna lose that battle to the weeds. You know, just a quick example, you know, here is my asparagus bed. You can kind of see them, they're pretty small right now. See, the asparagus is coming up. I mulched here, and I mulched right away after I planted, before any of the weeds got started. And as you can see, you know, there's a couple little ones here and there. Lots of little maple trees. There's a huge maple tree, a couple of them right over here. I get all kinds of helicopters out in the garden. But then we get over to this bed. I didn't do anything in this bed. There's a broccoli. There's a broccoli. There's a broccoli. You can see it's just chock full of weeds. Same with that one. The onions down there, I mulched it. I'm not having any issues. So it's when you have a plan that you're successful. Plan it out, think about it beforehand. I keep telling myself I am going to be more on top of this, but I have been with some of the things out here, like you just saw, the asparagus bed, there's no weeds. Over here I've got some blueberry plants. I've got that with deep mulch in it. Nothing really comes up through it, and when it does, the roots are really weak and it plucks right out. I am hoping that with these tarps, I mean, obviously nothing's going to come up through it, but I am hoping that this is going to be a weed-free, and that the no-till is going to work out for me too. I put a good handful, couple handfuls really, in each hole with each one of these tomato plants of the same aged manure compost mix that I put in all of my raised beds. I had some of that I had set aside, and I am putting a little bit of that inside every plant, every hole when I plant this year. So we'll see if the whole no-tilling thing works also. And one last thing, just to illustrate how the material out here lets water come through it. All of these muddy footprints, none of this is from mud on our boots and our shoes. This is from stepping on it, and when we're stepping on it, it's perking water up through it because the soil underneath is still wet. So that just kind of illustrates for you how it is just going to let the water come right through it and get down to the soil and keep the plants watered. So stay tuned. If you're looking for a weed-free, till-free way to do your garden, I'm going to find out, good or bad, whether or not it's going to work. So just keep watching. I will be sure to do several updates on this, because I have already spoken with some people and they're really curious as to how well it's going to work for me also. So keep your eye out for more videos updating you on how the whole weed-free thing is doing. And if you like this video, consider hitting that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And until next time, y'all, we'll see you.